Very excited to have our guest here today. We're going to talk about a big topic, and it's a topic that is different for every company and every employee. And I think that's why the conversation we're going to have today is really valuable to you. So, life is loud, work is louder. Sometimes kids get louder. Sometimes life happens. And as we go through the different stages of our life, the things that are important to us from our employer need to change with that. And which means that the employer needs to be thinking outside the box a little bit. It can't just be a cookie cutter. Here's our benefits package for everyone. When you're stressed and you're trying to figure out what to do in a certain situations, and you go to your benefits portal, and all you really see there is your healthcare, which is important, your 401k, which is again important. But what else can the company do to enrich your life and help you through tough times? And if all you see is the kind of the standard things like weight loss and smoking cessation type programs, which are valuable in their own right, but maybe that's not what you need, it's time for companies to step up and offer things that will be helpful, whether you're Gen Z, millennial, or Gen X, or even boomers that are still in the workplace. So, finding flexibility, finding what matches to you is what we're going to talk a little bit today. And I'd like to invite Jordan Peace to join me here on the screen. Hello, Jordan. Welcome.
I'm here.
Excellent.
Doing well, Michael. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm excited to see you. And we just came to the revelation. I was actually in Richmond, and you're from Richmond, and I didn't connect the dots fast enough. I'm already back in Dallas. So, but I would have loved to meet you in person. So next time. But I wanted to learn more about you. But first, why don't we start with just telling us how Fringe came to be, and maybe it had something to do with that opening that I mentioned.
Yeah. So it was a windy road. I was working as a financial planner, kind of financial advisor, worked with a lot of Gen Xers and Gen Y, folks that actually didn't have a lot of wealth yet, but were earning a decent income. And I was trying to help them figure out how to budget, how to invest, where to put it, how to prepare for the future, these sorts of things. And so because I didn't sell anything except for my advice and time, we ended up talking about all sorts of things as it pertains to money and employment. And one of those topics was benefits. And what became so apparent to me is that people don't really understand their benefits. And I think they don't understand them, one, because they're written in some sort of alien language that only like finance and legal nerds like me would understand. But two, they're not all that relevant unless you're sick or dead or disabled or 65 years old. It's kind of like, so what? Doesn't everyone give us the same stuff, really? And so just what dawned on me was, man, companies are paying so much money every month per employee to deliver all of this actual value, as you pointed out, but the perceived value was quite small. And so I wondered, could we flip that on its head? Would there be actually lower cost benefits or fringe benefits, thus the name on the shirt and so forth, that would actually have a really high perceived value, and that we could help employees feel cared about and loved and seen and heard and like they're real people. So that was my hope, and then that's how we got started.
And the interesting thing to me, and I know people kind of get this, but the benefits back to the employer are significant too with that, right? When your employees feel that, it's easier to keep them around, right? Because the cost of recruiting new employees is tough. But when you do need to recruit people, if you have a better benefits package, you got a competitive advantage, it seems like.
Yeah, definitely. I think the best talent runs to wherever the best culture is. Benefits are usually an outward expression of an inward culture, let's say, right? And so they run to where the best benefits are, and not only do they do that, but they brag to their friends about these great benefits and this great place that they work, and they recruit their friends. So your recruiting costs just went down, the quality of your recruiting just went up, and then, like you said, you keep people, which is incredibly valuable and really hard to do in today's world.
It absolutely is. Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a question, and I want to get to it when we get a little further into the conversation. It's about work-life balance versus work-life flexibility. So, Andrew, appreciate the question. I promise you we'll get back to it. But I want to talk a little bit about you, because I was reading your background. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're a LinkedIn person, follow Jordan on LinkedIn. He's a great follow because he's honest and he shares what he's thinking, what he's feeling. And so that's who I would prefer to follow instead of the kind of the canned people and not to criticize, but I like to follow people that are more authentic on LinkedIn. So do follow Jordan. But you mentioned you came from a financial planning background, which seems to be vastly different. Somebody trying to sell mutual funds and life insurance planning and things like that to offering this kind of entrepreneurial spirit that you have. What can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, were you always wanting to be an entrepreneur?
I don't think I knew what an entrepreneur was until about 10, 12 years ago, to be honest with you. But I always had a lot of ideas, always had a lot of creative solutions to problems, or restaurants that I thought would be cool to start, or business ideas that I would share with my friends. But I never
Yeah.
really saw myself as a person that was invited to that party, or that I could even be an entrepreneur, right? I mean, I was the first generation in my family to go to college, for example, so I just didn't have a lot of exposure. And I shared maybe the 100th idea with my best friend Chris Lerman, who's now one of my co-founders.
Right.
And I'd shared many ideas with him over the time, and it was often like, "That's cool, man," or like a little pat on the head, or "Go for it." But he said, "That's the one, and I
Mm,
want to do it with you." And I was like, "Oh wow, this just got very real."
yeah.
And so I'm literally on Google just going, "How do you raise money for a business idea?" And I learned that there's something called venture capital and family offices and I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't really my business to know it, I was in personal finance. I was
Right.
helping people with budget and these sorts of things. I wasn't thinking about business finance.
Yeah.
And so I've learned all of this on the fly as I've gone, and that's probably terrifying for my employees to hear. But but it's just what you do. You just kind
Yeah.
of That's what an entrepreneur is. It's someone who just goes for it despite their ignorance and
Yeah.
figures it out along the way. And that's really my story.
That's amazing, and I do
Yeah.
like that, especially I think in the age of AI, which we're living in now.
Yeah.
I mean, the opportunities are there for people, even if they don't know how to do it. They're going to figure out how to get to there because the information's so accessible. That's a great story. By the way, I'm also a first generation, into college, and so I get what you're thinking. You kind of you have to learn at a different speed than some people that maybe have been accustomed to that and growing up. But
Mhm.
that's great. But I mean, hope you don't mind me asking. I know that you've done some posts about ADHD
Mhm.
and living with that, not only just personally, but also just how that is running a business. How do you structure that?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I think ADHD in my childhood was something not very well understood. I think my parents did their best to
Yeah.
send me to a doctor. I think I got a prescription at some point. It went into a drawer. I'm not sure I ever took it. I really don't recall.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something I gave a lot of thought to. In fact, it was something that, and you can see this on my post, but that actually led to a great deal of shame.
Mm.
That actually felt like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I
Yeah.
do these executive functions? I didn't have that language at the time, but why can't I do these things that others can do? Why do I leave my backpack at school 3 out of 5 days a week? Or why can't I, remember to like get into this habit or this routine and so forth? And so without medicine or without a lot of knowledge over the course of almost 40 years, I just developed all sorts of I mean, I wish I could turn my camera and show you. Like, I've got a cork board over here. I've got notes that are pinned to it. There's
Yeah.
things that I can't keep permanently in my head, so they have to be permanent outside of my head.
Yeah.
So there's sticky notes everywhere, and it's a real struggle. It really is.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person that benefits from an EA to a degree that I think most people don't even understand. I'm like,
Yeah.
I will buy you a house, just keep up with my email. Like, please, I'm desperate sometimes in
Yeah.
in in trying to run a business, and we'll get to this later, but have a household full of 5 children and
Yeah.
some of the other kind of volunteer stuff in the community. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And when you struggle to remember and keep up, and when developing habits is especially hard,
Yeah.
it's just a whole lot. And so I've had to lean in and really accept myself and accept the struggles of ADHD, but also kind of explore the superpowers of
Yeah.
ADHD and celebrate those as well. And that's allowed me to have a more balanced view of this this thing, this neurodivergence that I have.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. I think you said something there, and I've said this before on the podcast with I think it was when we were talking to some marriage counselors about shame.
Mhm.
That shame that why did I leave the backpack at school 3 times? That shame, and the concept is shame thrives in silence and dies when it's out in the open. So when you can actually
Mm,
just kind of come out and say, "This is what I'm dealing with, people, and this is how I'm going to deal with it," it
right.
makes everybody feel better, really, but particularly yourself because you're no longer trying to internalize it all yourself. So I think I'm glad you said that. The interesting thing, and Florencia, who's our producer, will be happy. I'm going to say this, but that's a lot of I managed a lot of people, and then I managed them globally, and they were all across the world, and I learned all of them were doing things differently, and I could
Mm,
tell them what work to do, but how they approach it was vastly different. So that's why I kind of wrote the book Time Bandit, is because some things you can figure out, you can systemize, and other things you just need to prioritize. And that was kind of the way I got that. But I can't imagine doing that with 5 kids and one on the way. So how do you even get control of that itself, right?
we don't have one on the way. There's just
Oh, you don't?
5, and we're done. In fact,
Okay.
we were done at 4, and then there was a surprise. so, so when people are like, "Why do you have 5?" I mean, people will. It's funny. You have 3 kids, people kind of look at you a little bit like, "That's a choice," and then you have 4 or 5, and they'll outright criticize you. They'll be like, "What? Why are you
Are
doing
you
this to
crazy?
yourself?" And my
Yeah.
defense is always, "Well, I only had 4 on purpose." You know.
Yeah.
Oh, but
That's fantastic.
it is a whole lot, and I think the only reason why I've been able to do it is because I have 3 co-founders that are great friends. They're also great partners, but they're very accepting of me. I'm able to say, here are struggles that I have. Here's a weakness that I have. And the
Yeah.
response isn't like, oh, hey, step it up, man. The response is like, well, how can we help?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can we situate your schedule or situate your duties or your role in such a way that you don't have to live out of these weaknesses, but that you can live out of these strengths? And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have people in my life like that. But no one can help you if you don't let them know what you need help with. And that's
Right.
been the biggest change in my own personal journey in the past probably year, I'd say, is I'm learning how to ask for help. And it
Yeah.
makes an enormous difference in life
Yeah.
when you just admit what you need help with.
That that's great advice. I think just owning it and letting everybody else know they can participate, whether they're accountability partners or they can take the load. But how do you handle like your day to day? Do you have a system for like meetings? I'm sure you have staff meetings or maybe project meetings, et cetera. Do
Yeah.
you have any tricks of the trade there?
Yeah, many. One is everything is on my calendar. Take a
Mm,
shower is on my calendar.
yep.
Drive home is on my calendar. Like
Yep.
pickups, even though I'm taking the kids to school every single morning, you'd think that that would just kind of lock in, but
Yeah.
just in case, I've got it on the calendar every single day, every single time, and I just obey my calendar. It's kind of my move. I just obey the things that I have said. This is important to me. I will agree to do this. This is a habit I want to form. And so that's really big. Reminders are really big. Automated reminders on the phone, but then again, the phone sometimes is like just gone, which I love. I don't want it
Yeah.
near me all the time anyway, because
Right.
that's a whole podcast about that topic. But sometimes it's just notes in different places around, like I said, stickies and pinned
Yep.
up and so forth. And then when I'm in meetings, a struggle is to pay attention, right? It's to go an hour or an hour and a half on a topic where the way my brain works is I take in a little bit of information, I kind of develop a theory, and then I kind of go, yeah, here's what I think we should do. I feel pretty certain like in the first couple of minutes. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm always right. In fact, I definitely am wrong
Yeah.
sometimes. But it's really tough beyond that to focus on the details, you
Yeah.
know? And so I found that writing really helps, like not typing, but actually with a pen or a pencil to actually write notes,
Yep.
or on a whiteboard or something tactile.
Yep.
Just putting that pressure down on the paper, somehow
Yep.
keeps me tuned in. I'll get up and pace. I'll tell people why I'm doing it. Hey, I'm doing this to listen to you, not to not listen to you. You know,
Yes.
I'm standing
Yes.
up so that I can focus. I'm pacing so that I can focus. I'm twiddling with, a fidget spinner so that I can focus. And as long as I communicate to people that's what's happening, then
Yep.
they're appreciative of it. But if they don't know, then they're like, what? What's this guy? He's not even paying attention, you know?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
really is all about communicating with the people around you.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little more, but I'm curious. Are there any fringe benefits that in your marketplace that are specifically targeted at ADHD?
I actually don't think we have anything that's like directly targeted. There are a lot of things that help.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like Dashlane that remembers all of my passwords because I sure I sure am not going to remember all of them.
Yep.
And sticky notes is not exactly the safest place to keep them.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah, but I mean, I use my fringe points on like fitness to a degree, and that
Yep.
that helps. Like just getting the blood flow going
Yep.
every day is really useful, keeping the brain sharp. But yeah, nothing in particular. There really aren't a lot of products or
Yeah.
services out there that are targeted. I'm encouraged there's more and more influencers and people coaching and talking about ADHD than ever. I feel like in the last couple of years. So that's really encouraging to me. But yeah, we don't have any specific
Yeah.
product. I wish we did.
It's interesting. I'm not very far from the University of North Texas in Denton, Texas, and I've gotten to know the dean of the College of Information, and they actually have a lab where they're in it. And it started out talking about computer games, but now it's turned into what's distracting people.
Ooh,
And they've got this. It's incredible. Sometime I'm happy to introduce you to them. I don't pretend to know the science behind it, but it's fascinating to me because they're
yeah,
thinking about how do we keep people focused on certain things, and it's kind of an
right.
interesting study. So hopefully, like you said, there's more people working on it. There's more people talking about it. So that's good. So that's fantastic. And I'm curious in this if this is too personal. Say no. Do you see it in your kids, or are they too young? Do you not know? Or
I don't know for sure. And, I think that the sensitivity that I have there is because I've experienced so much shame and I so much don't want them to have that same experience.
yeah,
I'm kind of caught in between this decision of, hey, do I go get a diagnosis and sort of give them this, what could become a label for them? That obviously wouldn't be
yeah,
our intention.
right,
Or do I just treat them as if they probably do have this and
yeah,
just coach them up on how to live their lives, and
yeah,
and maybe they'll never need a diagnosis or a medicine, but it
right,
really just depends on the kid. I
sure,
don't have any children where it's so blatantly obvious, and usually
right,
that's more in the hyperactive side of
yeah,
the spectrum, right, versus the inattentive side of the spectrum. When kids are hyperactive, you can see it
yeah,
typically,
yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely,
but yeah, that definitely with a few of my children, I see this, not just the forgetfulness and some of those things, but it's the intensity of the emotion, like the overactive amygdala that is just takes them to the point of this desperate. I can see it in their eyes. They cannot calm down,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know and
yeah,
so just getting down on my knee, hugging them, holding them, squeezing them, giving them a
yeah,
chance to even, like, they even say having a child like push against you, almost like grapple with you a little bit in a, in a gentle but in a firm
yeah,
way, helps
yeah,
them, to use their body. So I apply all of the lessons that a parent with children with ADHD would apply, you
yeah,
know, but
yeah,
without necessarily the testing and some of those things
sure.
yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and our society it almost encourages ADHD with the way that the social feeds are. They're trying to
Yeah.
get you not to pay attention for longer than 20 seconds, right? It's
That's
that's
right.
and
It's the goal. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
even somebody not diagnosed with it may experience it because of just what's coming at them so frequently.
Yeah, I
So
heard this was, and I don't know if this is any truth to it, but I really enjoyed reading. This gentleman said that he looks at ADHD as an early warning sign of what all of society will eventually experience. If we
uh,
don't stop moving faster and faster and faster and
yeah,
consuming things in 7 second
Yeah.
clips and some of that, we're actually training our brain to not be able to focus.
Yeah.
And those of us with ADHD are just sort of like the beacons of like, hey, here's what's
Yeah.
coming. This is what
Yeah.
society is going to become altogether if we don't slow
Yeah.
down, and sort of watch things and have a plot and a point,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
That's
and so anyway, lessons, parental
yeah.
lessons there too. I tell my kids anything they want to watch, I say nothing shorter than
Yeah.
20 minutes. If it
Perfect.
doesn't have a beginning, a middle, an end, a hero, a villain, a problem, if there's no plot,
Yeah,
no.
that's great. I love that.
You
That's
know?
great. That is great advice. I hadn't thought about that. Both of my kids are grown, but I've now got the grandson who's 2, and it's funny because it's the same but different, because I remember his dad when he was 2, what he was doing, and I see that in the grandson, but I also see something else. So it's I think that's a fantastic lesson that they need to get the story, not just the ad.
Mhm.
I guess is a way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
Learn
we got
something.
about 15 more
Yeah.
minutes or so, and so let's talk a little bit more about Fringe, because I'm fascinated by this world of benefits. And we had a benefits broker on a few weeks ago, and she was fantastic. She was talking about benefits that you may not know you have that are there, and that's another problem, right? It's There's
Yeah.
just not enough education about what the benefits are there for. So that's one aspect of it. But
Mhm.
you've started this marketplace to provide a variety of different benefits that are they're elective almost. I was going through your site, and so the company can say, "I want to offer these types of things for these kinds of outcomes," but then the employee gets a choice as well. Is that fundamentally? Did I get that right?
No, that's exactly right. It's all
Yeah.
about choice. And there's several different reasons for that. One, I think we got to treat adults like adults, right? So I don't really love this idea of, an HR team read some thought leader said, well, in 2025, it's all about
Yeah.
pet insurance. That's going to be the wave. And so they go out and get a pet insurance vendor and offer it to their people, and like 9% of
Yeah.
them care. And the other 91% is like, well, I'm glad we spent money on something that's not
Right.
relevant to me. Thanks.
Right.
Right. So to some degree, it's respectful to say to an adult that works for you, hey, our goal here is that you improve your lifestyle in terms of reducing stress or giving yourself some time back in your day or impacting the family positively, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You choose what's pertinent to you, right? And the second reason is because not only is there a diversity of who works for a particular company in terms of their age, gender, whatever, geography, but also life changes over the course of time, right? I know that quite well as a father of
Yep.
5, right? There's been a lot of time where my wife's been pregnant. There's been a lot of time where approaching something like the gym was not going to make a whole lot of sense for a few months, and then it does make sense, and then we need childcare, and then we need child activity boxes, and then we need to start saving for college. And like
Yeah.
one person's life
Yeah.
needs a variety of benefits over just a short period of time, much less a long period of time. And so,
Yeah.
how do you deliver that outside of choice?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's
um,
absolutely right. And what's interesting, I may tie into Andrew's. Andrew didn't ask a question. He was just saying he prefers work life flexibility to work life balance. It's good. It's a good statement. I get that. But what's interesting about I grew up in the tech world, so 30 years in software technology companies, and I remember when the ping pong tables and the foosball tables showed up, and the free
yeah,
pretzels, things like that. And it was interesting because it did elicit an interesting behavior. People got more playful in the workplace, and you got to know people a little differently and stuff like that.
yeah,
But I'm not so sure the design wasn't just to put that in there so they wouldn't leave, so they'd be working longer hours, right? And so, but that just comes to it is we need flexible benefits. We don't just need a ping pong table. If the ping pong table's there and people want to play, awesome.
yeah,
But there may
cool.
be somebody else that needs something else, and they've got to be able to make those choices, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's giving them the respect of choice. It's also recognizing that people's lives are dramatically different than one another, and that they're
Yeah,
constantly changing. And so, we built this marketplace of services and some products and experiences as well. And we said, hey, these are the types of things that are going to improve the life of your employee, and they're going to associate you, Mr. Employer or Mrs. Employer, whatever, with
yeah,
with these moments in their life. So they're going to go out and get a massage and think, my employer paid for this. They're going to go on vacation, and that, that Uber ride or that Airbnb, my employer paid for this. You're actually impacting their life at a time where they're maybe not at work, not really even thinking about work, but they're
Yeah.
going to associate the employer with some great moments in life, right? And some
Yeah.
relaxation and kind of feeling like a real person. And so that's the core value. And then how the programmatically you want to do that, whether it's recognition or a wellness program or whatever the programmatic elements are, that's sort of, we'll figure that out, but that was the key thing that I want to get across to employers is you want your people associating you with their life and their family and the positive experiences that they're having, and not just
Yeah.
hour A to hour B and a bunch of tasks that you give them, because that's
Yeah.
that's not a good relationship. Yeah,
That's that.
that doesn't feel like a very full relationship between employer and employee.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic way of looking at it. And I had a question here. What does it look like when a company gets it right? And I think you just explained that, right? Is that
Yeah.
they're offering this flexibility to not just the task list. But so
Yeah, I
so
mean,
how does it work? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you feel like your employer cares, I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of the whole thing. If you can accomplish that with employees, that, and I hope that companies actually do. And I think it's a mixed bag. Like I run
Yeah.
into employers that I feel like actually have a big heart for their people and really care about their lives. I run into some that think it's strategic to say that they do, even though that they really don't. And then I run
Yeah.
into some that just don't care at all, and they're they're overt about the fact that they don't care. But I think if you can accomplish that feeling of like, man, I'm not just a number to these people. I'm not just this replaceable cog in this machine, but they actually see me as a person,
Yeah.
like that will
Yeah.
buy more loyalty than
Absolutely.
5% raises every year ever would, or ping pong tables, or whatever else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you 100%. So how does it technically work? So is the company brings Fringe in, and then what happens from an employer perspective and what happens from an employee perspective?
Yeah, so everyone gets set up with the Fringe account, and then the employer decides what kind of funding do we want to offer here. Do we want to do like a monthly stipend, or do we want to do like give everybody recognition points and they can give those to each other to say, hey, thanks for help on
Mm.
that project, or you were really awesome in that meeting, or whatever the case may be. The funding gets decided on. The funding lands into the accounts of all the employees. Everybody's got their own Fringe account with Fringe points. And some of those points they can spend on themselves, and some of those points all they can do is give them to others because they're
Nice.
for the purpose of recognition or gifting.
Yep.
And that just creates all of this momentum, all of this engagement, all of this back and forth. And when the companies really do it right, you'll see stuff like this. Like you'll see somebody send a message, and of course they'll do like a GIF that's like an inside joke that's part of the company culture, and
Yep.
the dancing baby or whatever the case may be, and it's like celebratory. And here's 50 points. Thanks so much. You're awesome. You're the man. And then others will pile on. They'll go, yeah, let me throw some points in there. Yeah, he did do a great job. Let me make a comment on that. And it just creates these really cool moments in
Yeah.
a company that just wouldn't happen otherwise,
Yeah.
because you just don't have anything to facilitate that. And then
Right.
what's exciting for the person receiving the recognition is not only are they being recognized by their peers and having this public or private moment of praise, which feels good, but then the points that they get, they actually can cash out for something that they actually care about. They're not just
Right.
going to get like a weed eater or some sort of plaque they will throw away in a couple of years, but like it's something real intangible that is interesting and kind of in our curated marketplace that's personalized to their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That yeah, that's great. And I think the flexibility is what's interesting about it because I didn't realize that about the rewarding too. That's fantastic. I think anytime you can enable team members to appreciate team members, that's an interesting thing because it's usually this hierarchical manager appreciating certain people,
yeah,
but employee and teammate to teammate, that's a fantastic benefit. I think that's incredible. Is there,
yeah.
and I know this would be like me asking you to name your favorite kid. I'm not, do you have a benefit? Is there a benefit in your marketplace that you were like, wow, this is really cool?
I tell you, it used to be Stitch Fix,
Okay.
which is I don't know if you know Stitch Fix at all, but
Yeah.
if you're busy and you don't have time to shop for clothes and you want to look decent, there's this service. They kind of learn your style. You put in all your sizes and everything, and they just send you a box of clothes once a month,
Nice.
twice a month, whatever it is you're interested in. You take the stuff you want, and they got a prepackaged envelope, and everything,
Yeah.
put it back in, send it back, and you just pay for what you keep, basically. That was
Yeah.
my favorite, and I still love it, but that was my favorite benefit for a long time. But then, honestly, I started wearing so much Fringe stuff now, like
Yeah.
I am now, that our
Yeah.
swag store actually has become my favorite benefits because
Ah.
we've got great brands and like really quality items that you want to wear.
Yeah.
So I just am like branded hoodie, branded tank top, branded t-shirt. That's like all I wear anymore is branded stuff. So that's kind of how I roll with my Fringe points.
Okay, I can already see it. You're pulling up to the school with all the Peace family, and they're all wearing Fringe outfits, right?
Yes,
Perfect.
I brand my whole family.
You got walking billboards. There
There
you
you
go.
go, man. You got to do it.
That is great. So let's kind of wind it down here. I ask everybody the same thing. Is there one habit that Jordan does every day? I mean, you are going to do it no matter what.
I try to write every day.
Good. Yeah.
I try to write something. Sometimes it's just a little personal reflection. Sometimes you might call it a prayer. Sometimes it's something that I want to put on LinkedIn. I want to share with people and engage with people on. But I try to write every day because my mind's very active, but also can be very chaotic,
Yeah.
right? And so having to like take these chaotic circular thoughts and make them linear and put them into sentences on a page or on a screen that are like legible and understandable to another human being, the practice of that helps me clarify not only thoughts but also feelings.
Yes.
And so if I got a chance to give anybody a piece of advice on a daily habit, it's working out's great, eating healthy is great, big fan of those things, but right.
Yeah.
Right would be my number one piece of advice.
Okay, and there's one more question. I haven't asked any other guests because I just thought I was thinking about it this week, but I'm working on this concept that tomorrow is more important than yesterday, and it's
Ooh,
about being in today. So I'm just curious, what is one thing over the past 5-10 years that you believed then and now you don't, that you've dispelled that and you have a different way of thinking? And I know that's a big
well,
question.
no, it's a layup for me because of the
Okay.
ADHD thing. So, two beliefs that I came away with as a child with ADHD. One was that there's something wrong with me, that I'm broken in some way. And two was that I'm actually not smart. I actually saw myself as a person that was not intelligent. And so I've had to reprogram my thinking in that way. And it's taken friends and my wife and others going, hey, man, look at your life.
Yeah.
Look at what you've done. Look at who you are. Look at some of these things that you've written. Read them back to yourself. You're an intelligent person,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
I had to, I mean, I genuinely just did not believe that until pretty recently. you
That's
know?
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I laughed when you said it because I thought this is an intelligent person I'm talking to. I mean, I didn't ever feel the opposite, right? So that's
Yes. I
amazing.
think seeing yourself is the hardest thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really have a pretty easy time reading people, understanding kind of what they're going through, what their strengths are,
Yeah.
maybe even some of what their biases might be and so forth. But I've realized that my view of myself is actually the most inaccurate read that I have on any human being on earth.
Yeah.
And I wonder
Yeah.
if that's true for a lot of people or maybe everyone. And that's why
Yeah.
something like therapy and deep friendships and deep conversations are so useful because
Yeah.
we don't actually see ourselves very clearly.
Yeah. That's a great way to end the conversation. Other than tell us where people can find Fringe. I know and across the ticker, your LinkedIn was going, so certainly they should
Yeah.
go follow you on LinkedIn. Uh, Tell us where to find Fringe and how to engage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually Excited. We're launching a new website in the next month. I'm writing it myself personally.
Wow.
And because it's just so important to me that we're really
Yeah.
clear about the value. And I like to write, as I mentioned. That's fringe.us. So right now you'll see the old one, which nothing wrong with the old one, but it's coming up soon here. So that's a great place to find us. And then, anybody that's in the HR space, if they're looking for us, I'd say talk to your benefits consultant, talk to your broker. I mean, obviously we can talk directly and we can get a demo going and all that good stuff. But um, yeah, I think it's really useful to work with a consultant that can kind of design the benefit suite and kind of help with some of those things. I always point people that direction too.
Yeah.
But yeah, first and foremost, follow me on LinkedIn. I'll
Yeah.
talk about Fringe occasionally, and there'll be a link to click.
That's
So
fantastic. Thank you so much for
yeah,
joining us today. I really appreciate your time, Jordan. Thank you.
enjoyed it, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody watching the Habit Architect, stay in tune next week. We'll have another guest and talk about various things, and we appreciate that. But don't forget to go check out our training bundle. So, learning how to manage habits, priorities, and tying those back to your values is all in that training bundle, and you get the app and the book and all that stuff. So, go check out it.